Hi, everybody. I think we are live at the 2020 City Engine user meeting. Welcome. And yeah, so let's get started in this first day's webinar. So today's topic is urban planning and AEC, architecture, engineering, and construction. So very first administrative step, obviously, is to thank the sponsors, which are Esri Switzerland. Then there's the Ideal Spaces Working Group, and obviously the gold sponsor also, Esri Inc. Thank you guys so much for making this possible. Let's have a quick look at the last events. So on the left-hand side, we see a photograph of the first City Engine user meeting that was held 2017 in Copenhagen in the halls of GeoInfo. And then there was in 2018, the City Engine birthday, actually the 10th anniversary. And then 2019, last year, again, for the second time actually in Zurich. And this would have been the location in April where we would have held the fourth official physical meeting. But yeah, here we are. So we're going to do it virtually in these two webinars. So just very short and quick, some housekeeping items. First of all, the questions for the Q&A, if you have some questions regarding the presentations, there is a little control panel that you can use where you can enter the questions and then click send. And we will pick up the questions afterwards in the Q&A session. Second of all, the recording is being recorded and it will be published a few days later or once the video is processed. Cool. The agenda. So first day, this was pretty short, the intro, and then we're going to have two presentations. First of all, City Engine in large scale master planning by Mateo Neira from Foster & Partners, and then ArcGIS and City Engine roadmap for AEC by Taisha from Esri R&D. And then we're gonna go just over some questions and then gonna have an open discussion in the panel. Yeah, so I will hand over the presentation to Mateo, but first of all, no, actually I'll do that right now. So stay tuned for Mateo.
Hello everyone. Thank you, Matthias, for organizing the event and for inviting me to present. And thank you everyone who's here today. My name is Mateo Neira. I'm from the urban design team at Foster & Partners. And a lot about what we do in the urban design team is work and collaborate with architects to deliver large-scale master planning for different regions around the world. And City Engine has been instrumental in a lot of our work in being able to quickly iterate through different design options, refine urban vision, and deliver the final outputs to clients. So just to talk a little bit about our workflow, as a very general, in a very general sense, it's a very standard workflow where we first work in defining the urban vision we have for the master plan, looking at the brief and defining what are the important elements within that, and using that to start drawing up a road network that defines the blocks within the area that we're working in. We digitize that, bring it into GIS, and complement it with information such as the target gross floor area for each block, target floor area ratios in different general land uses. Once we have that in GIS, we import that into City Engine, and we built a lot of custom CGA to work at this block level, defining different typologies, and with a series of Python scripts that help us optimize those geometries to meet the brief. And we iterate through different design options. We narrow in and hone in on the urban vision, and once we have a final output, we're able to export that back into GIS to produce all the different plans, and as well as into different visualization software to render out images of what that urban environment would look and feel like. To go into a little bit more detail into what this city engine process looks like in our custom CGA. So we have a series of modular CGAs that all tie in together and work through just one general CGA that gets applied, and it goes through different stages. So like as I mentioned, our input is in some initial block geometries that contain information on target, GFA, and FAR, as well as general land uses. The CGA that we developed takes these information in, assigns different densities based on that FAR and GFA, and takes those land uses, and we also define which sort of context we are working in. And with this information, the CGA first subdivides these blocks into smaller blocks if necessary by creating pedestrian streets or just regular streets, and then subdivides this further into individual lots. And with this individual lots, we call different building typologies that have additional information on height limits that are based on the type of land use, context, and density. And we work with a series of Python scripts to manipulate these buildings on the individual level to make sure that in the aggregate at the block level, they're matching the total GFA that we need to have. And we also assign more detailed land uses to each building and each floor within the building. And in this stage is where we usually refine the master plan vision. We test different design options, and once we've arrived at something that matches what we want to achieve, we can then detail those geometries with some facade typologies that we have developed that adds details on the roofing as well as in the facades of the buildings by subdividing, creating glazing, adding floor slabs, and so on. And this we are then able to export to both 3ds Max and Unreal Engine for visualization, depending on what the needs of the project is, and also back into GIS to be able to calculate relevant values for the master plan and create the detailed plans that we then deliver to the client. We have recently started also working with Python bindings to make the integration with GIS and Grasshopper a bit smoother, and to be able to actually execute these routines within those softwares without actually having to go through the city engine. What this looks like in practice, talking about those building typologies that we have developed this matrix of these 3 different main attributes that control what the final block typologies would look like, and it's based on the type of use that we've defined as these 3 general uses: residential, mixed use, and commercial. 3 density types, so low, mid, high, that depend on the FAR of the block. And these 3 different geographical regions that control the typology to make sure they're congruent with the climate region as well as the cultural context in which these master plans are embedded. And these work together to, for example, produce a wide variety of different types, whether it be detached housing or tower blocks or courtyard typologies, and working at this block level rather than individual building level lets us control how different buildings relate to each other and how they create these elements such as courtyards within the block. And this is a fairly automated process, again, since we're working in very large areas. we need to be able to optimize our workflow as much as possible to be able to do this iterative process of defining the design and the vision in a fairly small amount of time. So we start out again by applying those different block typologies to the blocks, running scripts that automatically do GFA matching, so controlling the heights of individual buildings to match the GFA. And then at the end, once we have the final massing that we want, to be able to detail that with the facade and roofing elements for visualization. And this is what an end product of going through all those steps for one individual block looks like. Once we share those 3Ds with the visualization team, and they're able to use their specialized software to create these sort of visualizations. Again, the power of City Engine it really materializes when you're working in these really big areas. So to exemplify this, this is a project I worked on where we had an 8.5 square kilometer area, fairly large area with 600 blocks that ended up containing 17,000 individual buildings. And we had a very short time to define what that master plan would look like. And again, being able to iterate through different design options was very important. So we started out by defining that road network, defining that urban vision that we wanted to achieve, and then bring that into City Engine to work its magic and be able to express what that urban vision would materialize into. And for this, we also developed additional custom CGA to give us final control over the overall design of the city. So we had a 3D mesh that covered the site as an envelope where we could modify height points in different areas of the city to create a very specific skyline. We ended up having very detailed control over the overall look and feel of the whole city and the skyline it was creating by manipulating this envelope over the entire site. And when we go through the whole process of iterating through different design options, redefining the urban vision, honing in on the design, and then sending that out for the visualization team to render these and add any additional details to express our vision, we end up with these final results that we can then share with stakeholders and clients and make sure we are in the same going in the same direction in terms of what the design of those areas will look and feel like. So thank you again for being here. Hope it was interesting for everybody to see a little bit about how we're using City Engine within our practice. And yeah, hope to get some questions from you guys as well.
Very cool. Thank you so much for that so far. So let's move on to a quick poll.
Hello, everybody, and thanks for joining me today for my talk about the ArcGIS and City Engine roadmap for AEC. My name's Taisha, and I'm a 3D technology evangelist working at the Esri R&D Center in Zurich. We live in a complex and complicated world, and geography is the science of our world that allows us to organize and apply the thinking related to human and natural activities. This world.
No sound so far?
It just cut in, but now it's out again.
Okay, let me restart the video.
I could hear it.
You could hear it.
Is it just me then? I couldn't hear anything. Okay, well that doesn't matter as long as you can hear it. Okay, cool. Well then, it's just me.
No worries. Let's go back here. Just, where's the restart button? Good, let's go.
The world that you and I live in is constantly changing. Some would say evolving. You and I are part of this living, changing system that touches all of our lives. As individuals, it touches our families, our organizations, it touches our communities, and as citizens, our whole planet. This science that's evolving is also advancing. It's advancing based on new forms of data, new kinds of computing, new kinds of measurement, and new kinds of innovation. New tools that will push it. It's not just one tool that transforms everything, but the union of many things coming together that's enabling this infrastructure to advance. Let's refer to this outcome as a pattern, a WebGIS pattern. In cities, these patterns become even more relevant. I think most of us have heard of the term smart city by now. Smart planning is so important. ArcGIS supports multiple implementation patterns, with projects being the largest of these patterns because people do projects on a desktop or in a browser. The second one is building systems like complex information systems, transaction-oriented that can be shared and used by many. And the third pattern is the cloud services pattern, like ArcGIS Online. All three of these patterns come together in a fourth pattern, the geospatial infrastructure pattern, which brings them all together. Today, we'll take a bit of a closer look at the cloud services pattern. Users are integrating every data type and format, whether that be tabular data, unstructured data, real-time data, vector data, raster data, imagery data, and they're making them available as ready-to-use services in the form of web maps and layers and 3D data. This is bringing together the world's information as geospatial infrastructure. And to help deal with all of this data, we have a wealth of products as part of the ArcGIS product ecosystem. So let's delve a little bit deeper into how all of this fits into AEC. Digital is disrupting how we think and deliver to our customers, and Esri is sharpening its focus on the AEC sector's unique requirements to provide customer-centric, project-based solutions. There are a lot of buzzwords around the AEC sector. Digital twin, smart cities, augmented reality, artificial intelligence, all of these are shaping the future of the industry. So, as many of you know by now, we've entered into a collaborative relationship with Autodesk to start to explore how we can streamline this very complicated combination of workflows, processes, and data sources. Here's a quick overview on the state of integration today between Autodesk and Esri. As you can see, there are many ways to take your CAD data into the geospatial world and vice versa. On the Esri side, we have a range of products and solutions to support your AEC or urban planning needs. Of course, we have our standard desktop software like ArcGIS City Engine and ArcGIS Pro. Then we have ArcGIS Urban, which is essentially a hub that enables planners and design professionals to collaborate across teams with a web-based 3D application that supports scenario planning and impact assessment. And under the imagery and reality capture umbrella, we have, for example, N-Frames, a company which Esri acquired earlier this year. N-Frame specializes in technology to automatically generate tiled DSMs, so digital surface models, true ortho photos, and meshes. Here in Zurich, we developed the Scene Viewer, the 3D part of the ArcGIS API for JavaScript, ArcGIS Urban, and ArcGIS City Engine. So here is an example of a mesh data set from N-Frames in the Scene Viewer, showing off some of the capabilities of the ArcGIS API for JavaScript. Look how realistic this scene looks. Next up, we have an example of a redevelopment of the city of Boston. And finally, here's a nice example of a noise analysis by Sweco. The Scene Viewer is a really useful and important platform to showcase all of this information directly on the web. So now let's look at the road ahead for the Scene Viewer. We're working hard on continuing to improve the functionalities of the Scene Viewer, and we have got many interesting functionalities in the making that are of interest for the AEC sector, but we also want to keep improving the performance and visual quality. Our goal is that the Scene Viewer becomes a platform where you can share interactive architectural visualizations on the web. So here's a little sneak peek on what to expect. We're really improving the visual fidelity, and you can see that this example here looks almost like a game engine, but in fact, it runs on a web browser, whether that be from your computer, tablet, or phone. So now let's move on from the Scene Viewer to ArcGIS Urban. ArcGIS Urban is our platform for city administrations where you can create master plans, admin zoning changes, manage development projects, and then share it all with the public. With the new ArcGIS Urban release, you can now essentially cut out integrated meshes and place your CAD, BIM, or 3D model in that spot. In terms of the ArcGIS Urban road ahead, so our current workflow looks a little bit like this. An AEC company would need to use City Engine or ArcGIS Pro to create a scene layer. And from there, this AEC company can essentially submit the scene layer into a city's ArcGIS Urban platform. The future workflow, though, will look a bit more like this. An AEC company can submit 3D CAD BIM models in a web interface by uploading it directly into a city's urban platform. So how is all of this possible? This is essentially done with the 3D object feature layer, which is the next generation of multi-patch feature layer. Now, the original source data can be stored in the 3D object feature layer and georeferenced. The model can be requested as original or in a common 3D format. And like the multi-patch feature layer, you can publish the 3D object feature layer as a scene layer. And this means that you have sort of fast visualization performance. All of this is really big news for Esri because we can finally manage 3D files losslessly, but still make use of all the 3D GIS functionalities that ArcGIS provides. This is a huge development effort, and it's not just driven by us out of Zurich. It's a collaboration of the City Engine, Pro, and Server teams. Now, let's talk City Engine. So here are some highlights of the new 2020.1 release. We invested quite a lot of time in the manual drawing of initial shapes like building footprints. The reason is that users had to previously go to other tools like SketchUp to do this. The tools are intuitive now and provide this missing functionality. And the feedback we've been getting from our users is that they no longer need to go to other tools anymore and can stay within City Engine for this iterative design work. Take a quick look here at sort of the overall strategy for City Engine. So we position City Engine in AEC for 1, urban designers who want to create a detailed urban design. 2, architects who need an urban environment. And 3, architectural visualizers who need to bring 3D GIS data to Unreal Engine. So generally we focus on ArcGIS Urban, ArcGIS Online, and Unreal Engine as our main target visualization platforms. But of course, we still support other formats too. The Urban integration will also keep improving and evolving as the Urban API is out now, and City Engine will be using this as well. And we're also continuously working on improving City Engine and its design workflows. So for example, the terrain. So we don't always just want to be pushing new features, but we really want to make the existing features as user-friendly for you as possible. The recent new feature of reading CSV files is a big thing, and it allows completely new use cases. By the way, we also recently added a tutorial for this, so you should definitely go and download it. So we'll keep improving CGA, also for ArcGIS Urban, which uses CGA. And things to look forward to in the future are, for example, local variables in CGA, better material handling, and we're also working on improving the interface to the CGA rules in the inspector. CAD BIM support in CityEngine is coming, which is obviously great for AEC, as the 3D object feature layer is using the CityEngine importers and exporters. We're currently introducing support for CAB and BIM files in CityEngine. This means that you'll be able to drag and drop georeferenced CAD and BIM files into CityEngine and visualize them. Same deal here though, we're not yet entirely sure when all this will happen, but it's all in the making. And then there's ArcGIS 360 VR. So some of you might be familiar with it already, but we're essentially reviving the 360 VR app as a web application using WebXR. This means it will be much more accessible in all VR headsets, like, for example, the new Oculus Quest 2. And it also means that it'll work in the browser on the desktop or in the browser on the phone. So you can see here, this is the browser directly inside the headset. Next up is the CityEngine plugins. So we're finalizing our plugin and API offerings, and we're essentially we're creating a web page for this. So I think most of you, some of you know that we already have plugins for Maya and Houdini, as well as our Python bindings, and of course the C++ SDK as well. But you can see that we have two new ones in here. It's Unreal and Rhino. So here we've got our new CityEngine plugin for Rhino. Means that you have CityEngine functionality without having to leave Rhino if that's your tool of choice. And finally, here's the plugin for Unreal, which is called Vitruvio, and you can see it's absolutely stunning. So that is it from me today. Thanks a lot for listening to my talk, and feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Thanks.
So that was it for Taisha's presentation. So let's quickly go back to one more poll. Cool. So yeah, let's. I'll wrap up this this second poll here. So let's close that one. Cool. Yeah. So let's tackle some of the questions. I have one, but let's dive first into the Q&A panel, into the questions panel. If everybody has some questions, now is the time to ask them in the control panel. So let's see. There's a question from Vladimir. Hello, I have a question to VR360 and Vitruvio. I thought VR360's development has been halted and you are focusing to the VR experience. Maybe that's one for Taisha to answer.
Yeah, so so you're obviously familiar essentially with the old 360 VR experience, which was this app, right, that you had to go into the Oculus store and download. And what's happening now is it's no longer going to be this app. It's going to be much more accessible in the sense that you can access it via a web browser, right, from within your headset, for example. So that's how that's differing now. So yeah, the old 360 VR development has been halted, but we're revamping it now. And with the VR experience, I think you're talking about the City Engine, like the tabletop VR experience. So that's also still ongoing, but it's going in a slightly different direction. Can I say that much, Pascal?
Yeah, there we keep working on this tabletop experience, and we just recently released a new version for the new Unreal. So yeah, you can keep using this, and it's getting it's a very cool experience. And and we're continuing the development there, and also try to connect it with Urban and also with the new ArcGIS maps SDKs for Unreal. So there is kind of a big development going on there, and you probably will hear news about this mid-end next year.
Whee! Sounds exciting. Cool. So there are more questions coming in. By Wendell, can we also do roads and streets in Unreal using the plugin? I suppose that's the question regarding the City Engine streets. I suppose they're not yet, because they are not yet part of the City Engine SDK. They cannot be used in Unreal. But nevertheless, I guess you could create some CGA rules with which you can create some street geometries, or maybe based on curved splines which are extruded or offset and then textured using CGA. So I guess yeah, but I mean in Unreal or in Unity, in the game engines, you usually have multiple scripts which are available, or script suites or plugins which are specifically dedicated to streets and roads. I guess you would best go forward in actually using some sort of hybrid with the tools provided otherwise in these platforms. Or that's, but maybe there's more in the making from Esri, or another extension to the answer.
No. Yeah, as you mentioned, I mean, Unreal has pretty good splines, and Unity also, and of course you can apply the rules to create more detailed streetscapes with CGA, but we don't have the graph network and the block parcellation, all these pieces. For that, you still need CD Engine.
Cool. There's another one from Kenneth. Do you have any plans for exploding Revit families before export or somehow on import? It is a big issue that, for example, a wall is an object and not subdivided in the facade, and the back wall. Maybe you talk with Autodesk. Maybe, yeah. I guess this is a question for the dev side. I'm not sure if you get this one a lot.
I think this is we are currently trying to figure these things out at this very moment. We are actually starting with IFC, and we are also in Redlands. IFC is currently on the plan. These are exactly the questions we are kind of trying to answer. And of course, try to be smart about it, but not too smart. So yeah, let's see.
Then there's another question from Vladimir. Whether there is a plan to simplify the roof management in CGA, like the roof orientation. Maybe Vladimir, you can expand in a second question. Whether you would like to have, I don't know, different roof typologies, or maybe explain a little bit deeper in which direction this would go. What I would really like to have is like the procedural water pipes. But that's difficult, I know. Yeah, otherwise maybe we get another question in that direction. There's already a comment. The correct orientation of the roof. I mean, there's one parameter which you can set for 0 and 1 that is kind of the main roof orientation, and there's a trick to kind of in code to orient it along the longest edge, but maybe send either me or Taisha or so the question, and we can have a look at it, because this for this type of answer we would usually have to look at the specific example and into the CGA code. Then there's a question from Tara and John. Is CD Engine gonna work on the new Apple M1 computers?
That's one for me.
I guess.
Yep.
I don't think so. We don't think that it will work. We will now see how how, I mean, like, even with Big Sur, we have some problems, and we are currently trying to figure out what we should do about that. The whole Mac development is tricky at the moment. And I think our strategy is a bit to lean back and look what's happening. Also, like how Adobe, for example, will adapt their applications to the new M1, and how the Rosetta emulator, how well it works, etc. So we're still kind of trying to figure out things, and sorry for not having a good answer.
Yeah, and then Guiton has one more question. Where can I find more documentation about the 3D object feature layers?
I think in the new Pro release. So Pro released now the first version of it as a file GDB, and the team is currently working on making it available for Enterprise and ArcGIS Online as actual web service. And yeah, but it's in the new Pro already, and it's a super exciting thing from my point of view. And yeah, so I guess that's the place to play with it. And yeah, stay tuned on that it goes to the web. But yeah, as mentioned by Taisha, this really enables you to basically put in 3D or CAD or BIM data into yeah, using Esri as kind of the backend, and then georeference it, and then getting a GLTF, for example, and also the JavaScript API and all the SDKs of Esri will basically be able to visualize them. And as mentioned also by Taisha, it will be lossless, so we really can store the original files. We don't touch them. And yeah, and what we're currently doing is basically adding more and more formats there to support it, and then it will convert things automatically on the server side. So this is a super helpful thing for many things, not just for urban. And yeah, and we're super grateful that the Pro guys were pushing this so much.
Cool. But so for the documentation for these things are kind of combining Pro and City Engine, so that the shared features are in the same documentation.
No, it's basically it's just like kind of Pro is the first one who supports it, and accordingly they have a nice documentation coming with it. And also the tools will use it differently. But Pro is probably the one where you can go where you can deep dive and actually learn everything about it. And yeah, and I mean, like ideally, for example, in urban, you will not see this thing, but this is in the back end. And for CD Engine, yeah, we will support it as soon as the stuff is also available on Enterprise and Online.
Cool. So there, I don't see more questions. Maybe I missed one. Yes,
I think
there
one,
is.
Yeah. Vitruvio, how's it related to the VR experience? That one? In that case, maybe
Go ahead.
I'll just answer that one quickly then. So Vitruvio is a plugin, right, for Unreal Engine, which allows you to sort of execute CGA in Unreal Engine. And the VR experience is a template. So it's kind of has everything set up for you already as a template. And then you can sort of bring in your city from City Engine into this template. So that's kind of, I mean, both are in Unreal Engine, but that's sort of, yeah, that's the overlap there. I hope that helps to answer that question.
Then there's a question for Matteo from Alexander. I'll read it. Matteo, can you talk about the process or the experience of adopting the GIS world into the workflow of a company classically focused on architecture? Introducing of data and science-driven designs can be challenging in an industry focused on aesthetics. Can you talk about how you did that with people's reactions and so on?
Yeah, thank you for the question today. It's a great question.
And well, when I actually joined the team, I think the office was very much focused on bringing in a lot more data-driven design and using analysis to inform design decisions. And within the design team, the big part of what we do is try to gather as much data as there is available to provide input for the design process, and also run different types of analysis to help designers make decisions. It is still a challenge, I think, more so than with the culture of the company. Like I said, it's very much in that direction, but more in terms of getting different programs and softwares to talk to each other, because designers, architects are working in BIM world, using Revit, also a lot of Rhino and Grasshopper, and then getting that and integrating their inputs within the GIS world. So importing that into Art Pro, and then getting that to talk to City Engine, and then whatever we have, also getting that back out in CAD formats and BIM formats. That has been a challenge, but I think it's been getting easier. I think Esri has done a great job in creating tools that kind of ease that interaction between these different softwares. And for example, with the City Engine, with their new Python bindings and such, it has really aided in creating these bridges between the different programs, and just making the workflow and interaction between the different professionals just a lot easier, and just communication becomes a lot more seamless.
Cool. There's one more there's one more question by Wendell. Are there any plans on having a marketplace where users can share or sell their own CGA rules? There was a marketplace, right? But I'm not perfectly sure at the moment whether it is very active or if it's restructured. Maybe you Esri folks can have an update on that.
Honestly, I also don't know what happened to that. I think there was one there, and but they were restructuring the whole marketplace of Esri, and I guess it's possible there, but I think it's kind of like, it's not like specific to CGA rules. So it's kind of like a bit, it's very broad. So yeah, I think we don't have like a really proper place for doing this, but could be a cool thing that we actually push this more.
Yeah, the more content, the merrier. Absolutely. Yeah. Then let's do one more technical question, and then just slowly shift into the panel discussion. So there was the technical question for Pascal: the future of machine learning for City Engine. General thoughts. What would be, or yeah, in what direction would that go, or is that going? Who knows?
Who knows? Yes. So we're playing with it in different ways. I mean, like on the one hand, the Python bindings, the PyPRT, one of the applications we saw was that that people can actually create their own machine learning setups, and then using all the Python libraries to TensorFlow and NumPy and all this kind of stuff to to build their own designed by AI setups. And as we saw in Mateo's great presentation, this seems to yeah, already kind of be used to some degrees. And in City Engine itself, we have not on the near-term roadmap. We don't have any AI topics, but we are kind of like in the experimental stage and prototyping stage. We're working on different things. Some of them are actually looking pretty good, but it's really too early to talk about it.
Never
Because
too
yeah,
early.
no, with these AI things, it's always like, because it's a black box, you never really know if it really works. But yeah, I mean, like, yeah, AI proves to work really, really well in image understanding and audio understanding, and for design, etc. Yeah, there are many companies out there doing it, and of course, at some point we will do it too. But yeah, we really want to do it right, and yeah. So yeah, it's in our it's in our view, but we don't have concrete plans yet. However, we are very interested in use cases, and also if there are people or companies out there who want to collaborate with us on this kind of experimental stage, then yeah, we would be very, very happy to hear from you.
Cool, cool. There's one more question from Kenneth which snuck in. Will Visual CGA come back?
Also here, I have to say we're working on it. I'm sorry, but we are actually really working on it. It's yeah, we try, but in a kind of in a more high level way. So what we're currently trying on is that you can basically kind of connect snippets of CGI code in a visual interface. Yeah, but again, too early to actually really say if it will work as good as we think. But yeah, we see, or like, everyone loves grasshoppers and the visual programming there. We of course understand that, and we of course understand also that it would help CGI a lot. And now with CGI kind of becoming bigger and bigger and becoming more and more into the Esri ecosystem, use different tools, start to use it. Then we have all these third-party tools, which we are, so the plugins, which we did now. So CGI becomes more and more important. So we are really, really motivated to yeah, move the CGA offering. Currently, it's only available basically for people who are in scripting or in programming. Then really move this also that is more accessible also for people without scripting background.
Cool, cool. Yeah, I would say let's wrap up the Q&A here. If there are any more questions, just send them to me, info@vrbn.io. I can forward it to the according person. Otherwise, obviously, also connect via the official City Engine channels like Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and so on. But yeah, let's move it quickly into the panel discussion, because it's fantastic to have some great panelists here. Some specialists from the City Engine development team, from evangelism, City Engine evangelism, to users at world-renowned companies like Foster and Partner. Let's talk a little bit about City Engine and the applications out there. Maybe I can start with a question for Matteo, because I was inspired with just looking at the imagery that he presented before, in the sense of you can now go in with modern technology, especially City Engine and GIS technology. You can go in and just design cities that are like gigantically large, and then pretty much have them visualized up to the press of a button of how the city could look in, I don't know, 5, 10, 20, 30 years into the future. So the question to Matteo: how are your clients reacting to this newfound power, I would say, or let's say power to be able to design and control design?
It's a great question. I think it's hard to say. I feel with every new implementation of technology, the people kind of normalize it very quickly. And I think at first the reaction is always like, "Wow, it's amazing that you can do this," and then in the next iterations, it's just kind of expected, and it's just every time you have to kind of try to push the boundary of what you're doing, just because how quickly things get normalized. But I think within the office, it's been I think it's been great to see the reaction of all the people we've been collaborating with, in the sense of being able to iterate through different design options really quickly and speed up the feedback process between the ideas that we have and the visions that we're kind of pushing forward, and then being able to really see what that would translate into spatially.
Mm-hmm. And or maybe just a following up question, which I also had, which also kind of goes in that direction. In general, about the future of city planning. So obviously, seeing that tools like City Engine have this massive potential of being able to control and plan massive master plans in pretty much entire cities. And I think the biggest, I've seen at one office that I was a couple of years back, they were actually looking into, I don't know, planning a city that was kind of almost the size of France. It was absolutely incredible. Or looking into the theory or the planning processes behind that. So what is your, or just to being in contact with people who are actually mandating the planning of cities, so like, I don't know, government or local government authorities, how do they see that the change of tools or of digital tools and tools like City Engine obviously influence the design of planning regulations over the next couple of years? Is that something that they are actively coming to you to support them also in those processes, or what's your experience in that as a company?
So that not so much experience with working, I guess, directly in influencing those policies, and we both mostly focused on the design and materializing urban visions for different clients, whether they be private or public entities and governments. But I think just going forward in the future, in terms of both design and also thinking about wider policies, I think just being able to integrate more of these data-driven approaches, and being able to look at cities from a wide range of different angles, and kind of easing the collaboration between all the different professionals that are involved, whether they be transport engineers, urban planners, economists, and looking at how the different aspects of the city all tie together and work together to create environments that are made for people and that kind of aid in creating sustainable places.
Mm-hmm. How
Yeah,
is that for Esri?
Yeah, what I saw is also like when we started this, like I don't know, like 10 plus years ago, the cities were very like yeah reluctant to all this digital digitalization, of course, but also the new planning processes. And so, for example, yeah, there were yeah, we had master plans where they were drawing religious symbols as the street network, all this kind of stuff. So it was a bit was really kind of like we had to yeah, really convince people that yeah, that this could be done in a smarter way. But in the last years, this changed a lot, and I think it's really, I mean, for example, the city of Zurich was always very kind of ahead from like how they, for example, looked into digital tools and really be pragmatic about it, and but also not like trying out everything, but really kind of yeah, clever, pragmatic, and kind of really understanding how it helps, and also but still by respecting the old processes which are important and which have been built over 2000 years. So it's a transition that's happening, and I also think now with the whole pandemic situation, I think even maybe the last big thing of the physical 3D models is maybe even this one is falling now, so that people actually really switch to digital to review plans. Also, I personally also like a physical model. It's like there's nothing like a physical model and kind of the sensuality about it. But yeah, I mean, like there's change, and what we also see more and more is that the cities really care and about and that they apply the new tools and new methods and new thinking to improve the quality of living.
Yeah, and I mean the more into the future that we are going, the whole notation of planning sustainable is not only like CO2 efficient cities, for example, or low, or like the population using less and less energy. It's not only in these things, but also in the planning processes, which are like can take years and years and years. All of the tools have such a dramatic impact at the moment. And one of the most eye-opening examples of where efficient tools are incredibly important is that I was in a call, I think that was with you, Pascal, a few years back, with a larger city administration, where they said, well, there's one department that has all the, I don't know, all the electricity plans, and the other department has all the water pipe plans, and they have no clue about where the other pipe usually is located. And so when they are drilling a hole, well, either they are lucky or they hit either electricity or a water line or a water pipe. And all of these things, if you think about those processes, if that's a continuous thing, day in, day out, year in, year out, these are massive costs. And by leveraging GIS technologies or smart planning processes that are efficient, that's a gigantic win for efficiency and for obviously also ecological reasons or purposes.
Yeah, and also what I think what's really cool on Esri's kind of setup is that they are very configurable. So this might be the first user experience might suffer a bit because of that, but I mean, like each city has other parameters, another setup. So it's also like there's not an out-of-the-box solution for city planning, or like you cannot just say make the streets wide and green and reduce traffic and that's it. So it's really like it's everywhere. It's this kind of it's a local problem, and I think this is why yeah, companies like Foster and Partners are doing so amazing jobs in like basically really understanding these conditions, and then yeah, this the design space is, even with the tools we have, is still enormous. And yeah, I mean, like the presentation of you, Mateo, was really awesome. And yeah, how you did this here, like I mean, like you only showed a basically sneak peek, but this was super, yeah, impressive how you yeah, I mean, like you cannot just apply this pattern to something else, I guess. You can apply, of course, some parts of the tools, but the design is always kind of different, I guess.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that's true. I mean, a lot of what, I mean, for every project, it's there's a lot of going back into the CGAs, creating new CGAs, and going back also and understanding and quantifying different aspects of cities to understand the context we're working in, and seeing how that translates into particular designs that we implement. But yeah, City Engine has been great in letting us do that, and integrating it as part of our process, I think has let us do things that otherwise would be nearly impossible to do with other tools. I mean, I think one of the greatest things was now with the release of the Python bindings, and being able to combine the power of the City Engine geometry with all the different libraries that are available to through Python, and being able to, for example, create optimization routines and explore the design space, as you mentioned, in a more efficient manner.
And then I also believe that the point you just made, Pascal, is I believe this is very important also, or in general, of that this city always has like a locality. So that it means it's always bound to certain geographic location, and therefore it creates like an individualism where people can kind of call home, right? And that is something that should always remain. Also thinking about AI and automating everything, this is something that should be kept individually and be designed individual with the, let's say, local typologies in architecture and, I don't know, urban layouts in general. Otherwise, you kind of lose the human condition of being able to when you have to design livable spaces that give identity to the people that are living in these areas, and therefore the granularity of the tools that you also mentioned, Pascal, in it always has to be, or the tools. It's great that Esri is providing modular tools that allow you to scale the granularity to very fine details like individual BIM buildings, or to very, very large scale geographic regions up to the world or beyond. Right. And yeah, no, I think this is very fascinating to me to see the tools grow and allow everybody to be part of that process.
Yeah, following on that, I actually have a question, I guess, for Pascal, in terms of going back to the question that was made in the use of artificial intelligence and where that could fit in terms of where City Engine might go into the future, and touching upon what Matthias was saying about the locality and specificity of all the different contexts of where people might work. if there's any thought in the roadmap for City Engine for being able to reverse the CGA process, for example, where you have samples of different either building typologies or block typologies, and you can somehow work out what rules can be generalized from those initial geometries.
It's the holy grail, right?
I mean, like, we don't try to do basically generate rules out of basically example based, or basically train models to generate rules. But yeah, we are training. The experiments I mentioned are kind of in the space that we are kind of trying to train typologies, and so yeah, that you can, for example, say like, okay, here I want to have some kind of Barcelona blocks, and then lift the brush, and you have them, and you can basically. But the Barcelona blocks is something you want to train. How far CGI then is more kind of for used for representation. It's not like the rules are kind of like, yeah, we cannot figure out the rule for, I don't know, for a perimeter block or something. But yeah, I mean, like, we are kind of experimenting in this idea on the typologies by example, and training networks that they actually really yeah, work on real data, and then you can use it. So this is pretty much the area we're investigating. And I think for the really kind of huge master planning, this will be a pretty exciting tool. Yeah, having these kind of brushes where you can basically select typologies. But yeah, as said, not sure if it makes it out of the experiment lab or not. Or, yeah. I mean, like, these ideas have been around long. We are not the first to have these ideas. Yeah, but we have the data to train the networks. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it's exciting times. It'd be really nice to see where the future kind of leads.
We're looking forward to the next City Engine user meeting and the results. How is that for you, Taisha, as pretty much the evangelist of City Engine and 3D in general, or the 3D team at Esri? How do people react in general to what you can announce to the world as solutions or as tools to the problems? How do people react to you and in general, yeah, to City Engine, but also to the rest of the ArcGIS platform and the technology developments?
I think, like, I mean, let's just look at the City Engine people for a second. Like, I think what's really, really cool about our City Engine community is, and I'm sure you've noticed this too over the last few years of City Engine user meetings as well, Matt, but like, it's a relatively small, but it's such a involved community. So like any little thing that we do and announce gets generally such good feedback, which is really cool for me to see, like, especially when I'm putting together, like, I don't know, like something for City Engine TV or trying to like find some highlights and things like that. And oftentimes I'll be like, oh, you know, like, I don't know, is this enough? But then sort of like piece it together. And then the reactions are always really, really positive. And I think that is just also because of the community that we've built up here, I guess over a decade now, meanwhile, which is super cool.
To me there's a certain mysticism behind all of those things, because the possibilities of the technologies, especially that are being developed at the moment for urban planning and the AEC market, they're so vast that you cannot play with everything anymore, right? There are plugins in different tools for pretty much for every design aspect in urban planning that Esri is involved in, like from game engines to CAD tools to IFC export, in everything. And it's the amount of effort that is that is going into these technologies is so gigantic that you for me as an end user, I almost feel daunted because I cannot even go in and play with everything. Right, and I see a very, very nice mysticism behind that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it's not even necessarily just you as end users, but I feel like as well, like even working within the company, like there's obviously so much that we do across Esri as a company that it's impossible for like me, for example, to know everything about everything. And I always find that interesting then as well when we go to big like conferences like UC or something, and someone will come up because like, oh, I don't know, like I've seen me on YouTube or something, and so therefore I must know all about everything. And I'm normally just there like, I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about then. But I think that's also, as you say, it gives it a sense of mysticism and intrigue, because yeah, huge company developing so many interesting things, and I'm always surprised as well when I discover something new. And yeah, there's just no time to play with everything. But I feel like that's just technology and life in general.
Yeah, definitely. Life in general, especially in 2020. But I guess it
Sure.
must be even hard to try and keep up all the presentations up to date.
Definitely. It's always a last minute rush then, just like, oh wow, that's changed and this has changed. But I mean, that's a good thing. You would hope it's like that. It would be terrible if it was just always the same presentation being recycled year in, year out.
But let's ask also maybe the audience, maybe there are some more questions in general for some of the panelists. Are there things that you would like to talk about more? Are there more questions? I can continue for hours and hours from now on, but I guess we have to wrap it up at some point. We are already 20 minutes late, but maybe there are some more important aspects. Let's see if something is coming. This may take a minute or two, but yeah, let's. So maybe just because I believe we're coming to a close end to the presentation. There's one thing coming in, but I'll just quickly wrap up this sentence. So tomorrow there will be a second webinar about the use of City Engine in the entertainment industry. So that's more like visual effects in games and things like that. So I really hope that everybody that was on board today will also join us tomorrow, same time, same location. And yeah, so let's see if there is one more aspect here that just came in. Let's start with this one from David. I teach CD Engine to a lot of universities, and the one main question that I always get are related to where students can find more CGI rules. GeoNet has a few, but there is no central place for people to share CGI rules. How can this issue be addressed? That is a good question.
We need to revive that marketplace, huh?
Yeah, the marketplace is certainly an option, but maybe I actually maybe the GeoNet sphere. I believe there were some things revamped. Is that correct, or was there a change planned or going on GeoNet? I thought I read something there that something may change at some point, but I'm not perfectly sure.
It got updated and has obviously some new functionalities. Yeah, and it's basically like the ArcGIS marketplace, which got updated. But yeah, I mean, like for us, yeah, so far, GeoNet has been really the place where we also like there are people from our team actually contributing there to questions, and I think it's just in general GeoNet is a very good community there. There are also users answering users. It's a really nice community and probably and really good also support and help. But yeah, the whole CGA content yeah, warehouse is something where we where we are lacking currently a good concept, and but yeah, it's definitely something we should work on. And as mentioned, because of all the plugins, etc., I think it will be desperately needed.
Yeah, David just followed up with that. There are a lot of sample projects, but there doesn't seem to be a kind of a central rule repository. But I mean that I guess that is kind of based on the discussion we had before, because of that nature of centrality of or also of the building typologies, that every city kind of has its own nature. That is something why I guess there is an imminent need or emergent reasoning why these rules usually are not or are a little bit tricky to share, because they are usually located more to a specific design of a specific geographic region. But I guess especially something like you mentioned before, Pascal, something like I don't know, like visual or snippets or a modular approach to CGA, that could, I see that something like this would be very beneficial to have in a centralized location, like the Esri lib that we already have, right? Which is, I guess, at the moment the go-to point next to GeoNet, at least as a container.
Yeah, and of course there are. I mean, there are the example projects. Plus, we also have the rule of the week, which is a pretty. I mean, like we have the City Engine resources page, and there you find a few kind of repos of rules. Rule of the week, for example, is kind of a gem for some people. It's really kind of very kind of exciting little rules. Which you can try out, and there are always little videos there. So yeah, when you go to the City Engine product page, and then there's the resources tab, and you come to all the different links and resources, also to Taisha's video channel, and yeah.
Cool. There's one more question which came in from Jonas, whether the presentation will be available afterwards online. And yes, we are currently recording. There were some audio issues at some point at the beginning, especially. So we'll try and make the best out of it. Try to save the quality before we release the recording. But yes, obviously it will be available, and we will reach out to everybody that was attending or not attending the webinar. Yeah, there is one more question. Pretty much it goes into the direction of like a feature, or like the whole dealing with terrains or working with terrains, and the dev roadmap for the terrains, and the whole design integration, like aligning and so on with roads. Is that something that Esri has maybe a quick answer?
Quick. Yes, we work on it. No, this is high up in our priority list, and we also see this like very often, like people saying, like, for example, they have a small terrain for the hero area and the big terrain for the environment, and then it has advantages and disadvantages, and we really we got lots of user feedback on these topics, and we're currently trying to figure out how we can solve these problems. And but yeah, we identified this as our next big thing we want to improve of the existing features.
Cool. Yeah, that would be that would be a very welcome thing, obviously. Yeah, so there are two more question came in regarding going from point cloud to CGI rule, an automated workflow. I guess that would go in the direction of what Pascal mentioned before, to kind of train certain shapes and forms to derive the rules from that. So that is something that I assume is under development. Maybe not necessarily directly point clouds, but I mean, from point clouds you can derive a volume and then like analyze the volume. So I guess that is something that is being worked on at the moment.
Actually, as we don't do the inverse procedural modeling, I think we have actually we're actually not doing this in Zurich, but some other people at Esri are experimenting with these things. And yeah, as you said, the roof forms, etc., and the building shapes using CGA. And we think we also have some people who actually really try to represent the features, which thanks to deep learning can also the feature extraction, which works pretty well on facades, etc., that they kind of try to create rules out of this. But yeah, this is more like kind of solutions which work on very specific problems, again, very specific, not like generic solutions. Like we in Zurich, we typically, we have to focus on the generic solutions which are of use for all of our users.
Okay, I believe we have to slowly wrap up, but there's this one question which came in. Is there a plan to enhance the city engine with the ability to use custom terrain and imagery services? Now it's limited to Esri terrain and Esri base map. Maybe let's take this as the last more technical question.
This is in the backlog, high up in the backlog, but not immediately. We're working on this, but yeah, it's a known request, and yeah, it's clear. I mean, like currently there are workflows using GeoTIFF and etc. So there are workflows and workarounds possible, but kind of like having a really smooth user experience is something which we know our users want, and yeah.
It's sculpting terrains with brushes.
Exactly.
Yeah, but I would say let's wrap it up at this point. Maybe there are some last comments from either Taisha, Pascal, Mateo. Anything that you would like to share? Last comments for today's webinar?
Just thanks for being here and hope to see you tomorrow. Yeah, but that's it. It's been really interesting. Also the questions, just the fact that we have so many questions coming in again proves my point about our very involved community, which is awesome. And yeah, and thanks to Matteo as well for making the time to be here today.
Yeah, thank you guys for organizing. It was really cool. And I'll be looking forward to see what cool stuff comes out of Esri and the City Engine team.
Yeah, also from my side, thanks. Really, really awesome. And I will watch the recording and check every frame of you, Mateo.
I see there's a great potential for a collaboration that would be very fruitful.
I mean, like we of course talk with fostering partners a lot, but it's kind of like really cool to see what's coming out, and super impressive.
It's very cool. Sweet. Yeah, so I would like to wrap this up at this point here. So thanks everybody involved. So thanks to the attendees and the City Engine fans. Thanks to the presenters, and thanks also to the sponsors. Again, Esri Switzerland, Ideal Spaces Working Group, and Esri Inc. Obviously, without you, this would not be possible to do. And yeah, this is it from also from my side. And I would say this is it. Please tune in again tomorrow and have a great rest of the day. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.